After unlocking every single schematic in-game, beating the Red Worm over 100 times, including no perk solo, hardcore 0 to hero, completing Elder Sigil over 100 times, and killing nearly 500 mega abominations, I will be sharing to you guys my top 10 best pro tips that will help you improve massively as a player. Now, these tips are not going to be in any specific order, they are all equally important, and I promise you that this will be worth hearing me out. So let's get right into it. Number 1. I'm sure a lot of players already know about this trick, but the moment you spawn in, you want to hover over at tier 3 and see if you spot a cargo contract. If you do, I would recommend trying to complete it because it's one of the easiest contract in tier 3 and it's going to reward you and your team 5,000 each, which is a large amount of essence to start off the game. Having a Scorcher is going to help you a tons when it comes to reaching destinations. However, if you happen to not have one, you can simply drive over there. Once you complete the cargo, assuming you don't have a legendary tool, you can actually purchase a wall buy for 5,000 and you will notice that some are actually legendary rarity already. You do want to make sure you are buying a legendary one and not getting mixed up with an epic rarity. You can simply just look at the color of the wall weapon and also just make sure it's actually a decent weapon and not a sniper, pistol, or battle rifle. Number 2. This next trick is going to help you a tons when it comes to mobility and being able to out sprint zombies. I have to say I am quite surprised to not see a lot of players actually utilize this basic function, which is sprint and slide. This is going to be super useful when it comes to dodging the zombies hitbox or when trying to squeeze between two zombies. Now, to make this even more effective, you want to combine it with sprint, slide, and jump just like the OG BO3 days. This isn't going to work as good as BO3 because your character isn't actually going to jump, but it cancels the slide so that you can slide once again. But wait, we can move even faster. If you happen to have a Juggernaut kill streak in hand, simply sprint with it. For some reason, running with a Juggernaut makes it feel like you have enhanced stamina up. Now combine this tactic with sprint and slide and jump, and you'll be easily outrunning any zombies in tier 3 and even in Elder Sigil. Finally, the best way for mobility will be to use the Scorcher Wonder weapon. You only need to pack this thing once because upgrading to level 2 or 3 isn't going to increase the charge rate of this weapon. Having this weapon is literally the perfect way to get from places to places. Number 3. This next tip is going to involve prioritization. When you're farming for contracts, you should really only be doing specific ones in order to maximize points and to save time. With a total of 8 different contracts, you really only need to focus on 5 of them: Elimination, Cargo, Outlast, Spores, and Ether Extract. The reason I chosen these 5 is because they are easier to complete and doesn't take that much time. You can argue that Ether Extract should not be included on this list, but if you're running with the squad, it's actually pretty quick to complete. Now, the remaining 3 contracts that you should try to avoid are Escort, Defend Ground Station, and Weapon Raid Stash. These 3 contracts by far takes the longest to complete and it just feels like so much work for little reward. If you want to get the most out of your contracts within a 1-hour game, you should focus mainly on the first 5 that I have mentioned. Number 4. This next one is going to educate you in regards to which are essential perks and that they do have more than one ability that you may not have realized or even known about. For Speed Cola, not only do you reload faster, but you also put on armor plates much faster. For PhD, not only are you immune to explosive damage, but you can actually stay underwater indefinitely and not drown. For Quick Revive, not only do you revive other players faster, but you also replenish your health bar a lot quicker. For Deadshot, not only do you lock onto zombies' head, but it also increases critical damage. And lastly, this one I'm a little uncertain, but I think having either PhD or Stam actually prevents fall damage only when parachuting out from the Red Worm's mouth, because when I did my no perks game, it would be a guaranteed down if I had no armor, but whenever I had perks and no armor, I didn't notice the landing damage. But overall, in order to effectively survive in the higher threat zone, the essential perks to have would be Speed, Jug, Stam, and Quick, and that it's important for you to know about their hidden ability. Number 5. This one may actually come in pretty handy, especially for those players who are downing very often. But basically, when you're in last stand mode and if you have a self-res, you can actually postpone the bleed out by simply self-resing yourself to 80%, then stop for a little while and repeat. So basically, when you're self-resing, it actually pauses the bleed out, so that way you have twice the amount of duration for your teammates to come res you, and you'll also be able to save your last self. This can come in as a huge clutch when you're going up against the Worm bosses. Number 6. I have seen a lot of players fail to make it to their final exfil due to running out of gas mask and having no self-res. Well, this next tip is going to be extremely useful for end games when the Ether Storm have already expanded. What you want to do is when you're running inside of the Ether Storm, you can actually stow your gas mask into your rucksack and just sprint without it. You'll be taking damage, however, it really isn't that much, but you'll be able to get a good amount of distance before putting it back on your gas mask. Wait for it to replenish your operation operator and then repeat the same step. By doing this, your gas mask will only break 10 to 15% and you'll be able to maximize the use of it. Sometimes when you're in a hurry to the final exfil, you really don't got the time to look around for an ammo crate to repair your gas mask, which is why this method can be a life or death situation. On top of that, if you were running healing aura and had spare armor plates, you can also use those to help you get even further. Now, for whatever reason you absolutely cannot make it to the final exfil, you can actually still take the bad signal portal even after the storm has already covered it and just force quit. I know a lot of players are doing the tombstone portal glitch, but just wanted to clarify with you guys that this can be your plan B, and it works just like a regular exfil. You'll still be able to keep everything your operator has. Just make sure you know how the tombstone force quit works. Count 3 seconds once you hear the warp and quit. Number 7. This next tip I'm going to show you is the best method in my opinion on how to take out a Mega Abomination. What you want to do is make sure you have a Scorcher and a powerful weapon. I would recommend either the TYRS or the Lockwood 680. And yes, even after Season 1 Reno nerf, these guys are still by far superior. The moment you take out his first head, switch over to your Scorcher and do a semi-launch, and that will force the mag to shoot out his second beam. Now is your chance to blow that head up, and repeat again for the third head, and you should be able to defeat the mag in less than 30 seconds. Another very powerful weapon to use to take out a mag is actually the VR11, which can literally one-shot a mag's head. In case if you didn't know, a VR11 can also heal escort vehicle, which is insanely broken for Elder Sigil. You can literally beat it without killing a single zombie and just focus on shooting the vehicle. With this trick, you never have to struggle ever again when attempting to defeat a mag or completing one of the hardest missions, which is the escort in Elder Sigil. Number 8. The king of boss of Modern Warfare 3 zombie is the Red Worm known as Greylorm. Up to date, I've still seen groups of players who struggle in beating this boss. There is actually a secret method in making this fight a much easier, and that is you want to make sure only one person puts in all 4 of the USBs, not multiple players putting them in, but one, because for some reason by doing so it lowers the Red Worm's health as well as the difficulty, and this is going to give you a much easier time to defeat it. Number 9. This next tip I'm going to show you is how to easily clear out infested strongholds. If you haven't already realized, every infested stronghold is actually in a different building. Some I would say are easier to clear out, some average, and some even harder depending on the layout. I would recommend picking the easy to average ones until you get more comfortable. The way I usually clear infested is to try to pop pimples from outside first. Then when you work your way in, focus on one floor first, then look for an exit to recover a bit. A lot of players would just charge in and try to clear the whole building and end up getting overwhelmed. But the method I'm showing you is going to make your life a lot easier. Then you want to go back in and work on second floor and look for an exit for recovery if there is a third floor. Another important tip for infested stronghold is once you get very comfortable clearing these out and memorizing where pimples could potentially spawn, you don't actually need a gas mask, and often at times if you see your gas mask is about to break, you can actually stow it and take it back out after it's cleared so that you don't actually lose it. This will save you a lot of time because a lot of players would rather go look for an ammo crate to repair masks then come back. Here I'm going to show you an example of me clearing out a high threat infested. Number 10. I think one of the biggest struggle for players is trying to survive in tier 3 red zone. As I have mentioned for tip number 3, you should only be focusing on specific contracts. Well, good news is that in the red zone, there's only a total of 5 different contracts and 4 being the ones that you should be doing. We all know that cargo is the easiest one to do, but I feel that people overestimate the difficulty of Outlast. This objective isn't like Holdout back in Cold War where you're trapped in the building and can't really train. Outlast, you literally just need to stall time, and one way by doing so is just run around and don't even need to kill. You just need to survive for about a minute and 15 seconds, and you can even leave the area and come back and you'll still be able to complete it. However, for most Outlast contracts, I would recommend climbing onto something and just camp, since zombies will usually only come from one direction. And again, if your weapon isn't good enough, you can just train and stall and you'll do just fine. Decoys are even a plus for this. Now this will leave us to only one contract left, which is the Spores. One way to easily clear this one out is by farming for a turret circuit. You can get one of these from either an Ether Nest, Infested Stronghold, or even a Merc Stronghold. There are multiple turrets scattered within the red zone, and if you were to place one within the zone of your Spores contract, it will literally melt all the zombies, including Mega Abomination, while you focus on the Spores. Now lastly, I want to sum this video up by saying that to become a better zombie player on Modern Warfare 3, you need to be fluent of the layout of the entire map, understand where everything is located, and finally knowing what weapons are meta and what works best for the mission you're doing. Mastering this plus the 10 pro tips that I have given you, you will become an expert on this game. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and hopefully you learned something new. Season 2 is just right around the corner, so if you don't want to miss out on any new pro tips, make sure to drop a like and subscribe, and we'll see you all on the next one.